The cargo cranes above Dock 9 moved with the slow patience of tired giants, their long mechanical arms gliding across the open hangar as they lifted containers from arriving freighters. The entire station vibrated faintly with the steady hum of engines, gravity stabilizers, and thousands of tons of metal shifting from one place to another. For most people, the sound would have been unbearable. For Finn, it was just another morning. He stood on a loading platform wearing a faded work jacket and holding a scanner that had clearly survived several technological eras it had no right to remember. The device beeped lazily while he checked the identification codes on a row of cargo containers. According to the manifest, they contained medical supplies, although Finn had long ago learned that manifests were often written by people with a very creative relationship with reality. One container read, agricultural equipment. The container weighed 12 tons. Finn tapped the scanner again inside. Unless someone invented a very large carrot, he muttered, this is definitely not farming gear. A nearby dock worker glanced over while guiding a hovering cargo sled past him. What was that? Nothing, Finn replied, just admiring the honesty of the shipping industry. The man laughed and continued moving crates toward the station's storage lifts. Dock 9 was one of the busiest docking rings on Halcyon Station, a massive orbital trade hub that circled a quiet blue star far from the political centers of the galaxy. Freighters arrived constantly from dozens of systems, bringing everything from starship components to strange alien foods that glowed faintly when left in the dark. Finn had been working the docks for nearly 6 years now. The job was simple in theory. Scan cargo, move cargo, try not to get crushed by cargo. In practice, it involved endless paperwork, malfunctioning equipment, and supervisors who believed shouting louder made machines work faster. Above him, a cargo crane suddenly emitted a long, complaining whine. Finn tilted his head and looked up. "Don't you dare," he said quietly. The crane responded by whining louder. "Listen," Finn continued, pointing at it with the scanner. "I just fixed your guidance sensors yesterday. If you drop another container, I'm reporting you to maintenance, and they'll replace you with one of those new smart cranes." The crane stopped whining. Finn nodded with satisfaction. "Good talk." A moment later, the station alarm sounded. Not the sharp emergency alarms that meant explosions or hull breaches. These were ceremonial tones, long, echoing signals that rolled through the docking ring like distant thunder. Every worker on the platform stopped. Finn slowly lowered the scanner. "Oh no," he said. The dock worker beside him looked up at the observation windows where station lights were beginning to change color. "What?" the man asked. Finn sighed. "That's the diplomatic arrival signal. And that means someone important is landing." The man shrugged. "So?" Finn gave him a look filled with deep experience. "So now we get inspectors." At that exact moment, the enormous outer docking doors began to open. The starfield beyond the station stretched into view, black and endless, scattered with cold points of distant light. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then something appeared. A ship glided slowly toward the docking ring, descending through the station's approach corridor with graceful precision. It was enormous. Unlike the blocky freighters that usually visited Halcyon Station, this vessel was sleek and almost organic in design, its curved silver hull reflecting the light of the nearby star. Lines of glowing symbols ran along its surface like flowing script. Finn squinted. "Well," he said quietly, "that's definitely not carrying carrots." Workers all across the docking platform had stopped moving. Cargo sleds hovered in place while people stared upward. Even the crane seemed curious. The ship lowered gently onto the landing platform with barely a sound. Magnetic locks clamped onto its hull as docking bridges extended from the station toward the vessel. Within seconds, station officials were rushing onto the platform. Finn recognized the station administrator immediately, mostly because the man was wearing the kind of formal coat people only wore when trying to impress royalty. Finn groaned. "Oh, that's bad." "Why?" the other dock worker asked. Finn pointed. "When the administrator shows up personally, it means the visitor outranks his ego." The man stared. "That's possible?" "Apparently." The docking bridge connected with a soft metallic click. A long moment passed. Then the ship's main hatch opened. A group of armored guards stepped out first, their movements calm and disciplined. Their armor shimmered with faint blue energy fields, and each of them carried weapons that looked far too expensive to ever be used on a dock worker. Behind them, several elegant figures in diplomatic robes followed. The entire station platform had fallen silent, and then she appeared. She stepped through the hatch slowly, tall and composed, her long dark hair moving slightly in the artificial gravity. At first glance, she looked almost human, but the graceful curve of her long ears marked her unmistakably as alien. Even from a distance, she carried the kind of quiet authority that made entire rooms pay attention without her saying a word. Finn blinked. "Well," he whispered, "that explains the coat." One of the dock workers nearby leaned closer. "Who is that?" Finn shrugged. "No idea." But before the welcoming officials could approach her, the alien woman looked across the entire docking platform. Her gaze moved calmly over the gathered crowd. Then she began walking, not toward the diplomats, not toward the station administrator. She walked straight across the platform, toward the cargo cranes, toward the confused group of dock workers, toward Finn. Finn glanced behind him. There was no one else there. He looked back at the approaching woman. "Oh," he said quietly, "this seems like a mistake." The alien woman continued walking across Dock 9 with calm, deliberate steps, as if crossing a quiet garden path instead of one of the busiest cargo platforms in the sector. Her security guards followed a few paces behind her, their movements tense and controlled, scanning every direction. The station administrator hurried alongside them, clearly trying to redirect the situation without actually touching anyone who might outrank him politically. None of it seemed to matter to her. She kept walking toward Finn. Finn did what any sensible dock worker would do in this situation. He slowly looked behind himself again. Nothing. He looked to the left. Only crates. He looked to the right. More crates. Then he looked at the dock worker beside him. "You see her walking toward us, right?" The man nodded slowly. "Yes." "Good," Finn said. "Just checking that I didn't inhale something strange from those medical containers." The dock worker leaned slightly away from him. "You inhale things from cargo containers?" "Only accidentally," Finn replied. Meanwhile, the entire docking platform had entered a strange state of silence. Cargo sleds hovered forgotten in midair. Cranes paused halfway through lifting containers. Workers stood frozen in place like statues that had been very surprised to become statues. The alien woman stopped a few meters in front of Finn. Up close, she looked even more striking. Her face was calm but observant, and her long ears curved slightly backward through her dark hair. The polished metal of her diplomatic armor reflected the station lights in smooth silver waves. She studied Finn carefully. Finn studied her carefully. A full 5 seconds passed. Finn lifted the scanner in his hand and looked at it. Then he tapped it once. The scanner beeped. "Just making sure this thing isn't hallucinating," he said. One of the armored guards stiffened slightly. The station administrator coughed nervously. The alien woman smiled. It was a small smile, but it changed her entire expression. "I know this human," she said calmly. Her voice carried across the entire docking platform. The reaction was immediate. The administrator blinked 3 times. One of the guards turned sharply toward Finn. Several dock workers whispered loudly. Finn looked over his shoulder again. Still no one. He pointed at himself. "Me?" The alien woman tilted her head slightly. "Yes." Finn frowned. "Well, that's concerning." A ripple of quiet laughter moved through the nearby workers before the security guards glared at them into silence. Finn scratched the side of his head. "I don't want to be rude," he said slowly, "but I feel like I would remember meeting someone with, the royal spaceship." The woman lifted a hand to the elegant headpiece resting on her hair. The metallic ornament shimmered with tiny embedded lights that glowed faintly like distant stars. Then she removed it. Without the formal crown, her face looked subtly different, less distant, less ceremonial, more familiar. Finn stared. His expression shifted slightly as his eyes moved across her face. Then he froze. There was a faint scar near her temple, a thin, pale line that curved toward her hair. Finn's brain began moving through memories it had not visited in years. Cold metal walls, dim industrial lights, the smell of recycled air. A labor yard surrounded by armed guards. prisoners carrying equipment across a barren asteroid facility. And among them, an alien woman with long ears, quiet, observant, always watching the guards. Finn blinked. "You cut your hair," he said. Several diplomatic officials gasped softly. The alien woman laughed. Not the polite laugh of a queen speaking to strangers, a real laugh, warm and familiar. "Yes," she said. Finn looked around at the stunned crowd. "Well," he added awkwardly, "that's good. It was getting in your eyes before." One of the security guards turned his helmet slightly toward Finn, clearly unsure how much disrespect counted as treason. The woman waved a small dismissive gesture toward the guards. "They are fine," she said. Then she looked back at Finn. "You shared your food with me for 6 months." Finn crossed his arms slowly. "That still doesn't narrow it down," he said. "I've made a lot of questionable friendships." The woman's eyes glimmered with amusement. "You also attempted to teach me a card game," she continued, "that you did not fully understand." Finn pointed a finger at her. "First of all," he said, "that game is complicated." A nearby dock worker whispered, "It's literally just numbered cards." Finn ignored him. The alien woman folded her hands calmly behind her back. "In the prison camp," she said softly. The words hit Finn like a door opening in his memory. The asteroid labor facility, the prisoners, the endless shifts moving mining equipment under armed supervision, and the quiet alien prisoner who had barely spoken to anyone. Finn looked at her again, this time with complete recognition. "Oh," he said. Then he rubbed his face slowly. "Oh no." The queen tilted her head. "No?" Finn sighed deeply. "You were the quiet one," he said, "always watching the guards, barely talked." She nodded. "You tried to distract them once," she said. Finn groaned. "Please don't bring that up." "You argued with them for 20 minutes about soup. It was a strategic distraction. You insisted their soup violated basic cooking principles." "Because it did," Finn said firmly. For the first time, several of the Queen's guards looked genuinely confused. The station administrator looked like he might faint. The alien woman smiled again. "Yes," she said softly. "I remember." For several seconds after her last words, Dock 9 remained so quiet that the faint humming of the station's gravity stabilizers seemed unusually loud. Workers stared. Cargo sleds floated forgotten in midair. Even the cargo cranes had paused in their slow mechanical routines, as if they too were trying to understand how a galactic queen had just begun reminiscing about soup with a dock worker. Finn rubbed the back of his neck. "Well," he said carefully, "this is awkward." The station administrator cleared his throat with the fragile politeness of a man desperately trying to restore order to a reality that had clearly lost interest in following his schedule. "Your Majesty," he began nervously, "perhaps we should proceed to the diplomatic hall where the formal welcoming ceremony—" The Queen lifted a hand slightly. He stopped speaking instantly. Her attention remained on Finn. "You survived," she said. It was not a question. Finn shrugged. "Mostly through stubbornness and a questionable diet." A few dock workers nearby chuckled before remembering the situation and pretending to inspect cargo containers very seriously. The Queen studied him for another moment, as if confirming something important. Then she turned slightly toward her security commander. "Stand down." The armored guards hesitated. One of them spoke through the filtered tone of his helmet. "Your Majesty, security protocol requires—" "Stand down," she repeated calmly. The guards relaxed their stance, though their eyes still scanned the docking platform. Finn pointed at them. "Just so we're clear," he said, "I fully support security protocol." The Queen smiled faintly. "You always did prefer caution after you realized the guards in the camp disliked you." Finn folded his arms. "They didn't dislike me." She raised an eyebrow. "You threw a food tray at one." "In my defense," Finn said, "he started it by insulting the soup." The nearest dock worker muttered under his breath, "Still talking about the soup." Meanwhile, the station administrator had entered a visible state of confusion normally associated with malfunctioning service robots. He looked at the Queen. He looked at Finn. Then he looked at the royal security team. Finally, he leaned toward one of the diplomats and whispered something urgently. Finn caught a few words. "Dock worker, a former prisoner. Why is she laughing?" The Queen turned back to Finn. "You disappeared during the evacuation. she said. Finn nodded slowly. Yeah. For a moment his usual humor faded slightly. That escape got messy. The memory drifted between them. The prison asteroid. The chaos when the internal systems had failed. Prisoners running through smoke-filled corridors while alarms screamed through the metal walls. Finn scratched his chin. I figured you got out, he said. You were already halfway through disabling the security doors. The Queen tilted her head. You noticed. I notice things, Finn replied. Usually right before they explode. One of the guards shifted slightly at that statement. The Queen stepped a little closer, lowering her voice slightly though the entire dock still listened, with shameless curiosity. You shared your food when others would not, she said quietly. Finn shrugged again. Half a ration bar, he said. Not exactly heroic. You stood between me and the guards once. Finn waved his hand dismissively. They were already angry with me. You gave me tools to open the maintenance hatch. Finn smiled faintly. That part was clever. She studied him carefully. You did all of this without knowing who I was. Finn looked genuinely puzzled. Should I have? Several of the nearby diplomats visibly twitched. The Queen laughed again. It was softer this time. No, she said. You should not. Finn gestured vaguely toward the enormous silver ship behind her. So, you're a queen now. Again, she corrected. He blinked. Again? Yes. Finn exhaled slowly. Okay, he said. That raises several follow-up questions. The station administrator finally gathered enough courage to step forward again. Your Majesty, he said carefully, the diplomatic council is waiting. She glanced toward him briefly. They may continue waiting. The administrator opened his mouth, then closed it again. Finn pointed at the ship. You came here for diplomacy, right? Yes. And instead you walked past everyone important and came straight to a cargo scanner technician. Dock worker, she corrected. Right. Finn sighed. You're causing paperwork. The Queen looked thoughtful. Your concern is paperwork? Finn nodded firmly. Paperwork ruins lives. One of the royal guards actually made a faint choking sound that might have been suppressed laughter. At that moment, a low alert tone echoed faintly through the docking ring. Not loud enough to trigger panic, just enough to catch attention. Several guards immediately checked their wrist displays. The Queen's security commander stepped forward. Your Majesty, he said quietly, we are detecting several unidentified vessels entering the outer system. Finn raised an eyebrow. That sounds unfriendly. The commander nodded. They are not broadcasting identification. Finn pointed at himself. Please tell me they're not here because of me. The Queen looked at him calmly. It is possible. Finn stared at the ceiling. Fantastic, he muttered. I finally get noticed by royalty, and suddenly the galaxy sends visitors. The quiet alert tone faded into the background, but the effect it created did not disappear with it. The royal guards instantly shifted from relaxed watchfulness into precise readiness. Their helmets turned toward the outer observation windows of Dock 9, where the distant stars shimmered faintly beyond the station's shield barrier. Finn noticed the change immediately. Well, he said, that's not the posture people use when discussing soup recipes. One of the guards touched the side of his helmet as streams of tactical information scrolled across the visor. A soft blue glow pulsed across his armor as the suit linked with the station's defense network. The security commander spoke calmly, though his tone carried quiet urgency. Unidentified vessels have altered trajectory. They are approaching the station faster than expected. The station administrator suddenly looked as if someone had informed him that reality had stopped cooperating with his career plans. Approaching? He repeated. The guard nodded once. Finn lifted his scanner and pointed it vaguely toward the massive observation window. How many ships are we talking about? The commander checked his display again. 3. Finn tilted his head. That seems manageable. The guard continued reading. Stealth hull signatures, military-grade drive systems. Finn lowered the scanner. That seems less manageable. The Queen remained perfectly still throughout the conversation. Her gaze moved toward the distant starfield beyond the docking platform, as if she could see the approaching ships without the assistance of sensors. They have come quickly, she said quietly. Finn crossed his arms. That sentence contains several worrying implications. The commander stepped closer to her. Your Majesty, we recommend immediate relocation to the ship. The station's defenses are capable, but the diplomatic vessel provides far stronger shielding. The Queen considered that for a moment. Then she looked at Finn. Finn pointed at himself again. Please don't involve me in whatever decision you're about to make. You will come with us, she said calmly. Finn blinked. That's exactly the outcome I was hoping to avoid. The station administrator suddenly found his voice again. Yes, of course, he said quickly. Security protocol clearly requires... Finn turned to him. You were literally asking me to move crates 10 minutes ago. Yes, the administrator replied nervously. But now those crates are diplomatically sensitive. Everything becomes sensitive when spaceships show up, Finn muttered. The royal guards moved efficiently, forming a protective formation around the Queen as they began guiding her back toward the docking bridge that connected to the massive silver vessel. Finn followed reluctantly. A nearby dock worker called out quietly, Finn! Finn turned. The man pointed at the cargo crane above them. You never finished checking container C-47. Finn sighed. If I survive today, he said, tell maintenance it's definitely not carrots. The man nodded solemnly. I already knew that. They continued across the docking platform while station security personnel hurried into position around the perimeter. Automated defense turrets rose slowly from hidden panels in the floor, their sensor lenses glowing faintly as they scanned the surrounding space. Finn noticed one of them turning toward him. He stopped walking. That turret is looking at me like it knows something. A guard gently pushed him forward. It is only scanning. I feel judged. The docking bridge extended into the Queen's ship like a gleaming tunnel of polished metal and glowing blue lights. As they stepped inside, Finn immediately noticed that everything looked extremely expensive. The floor alone probably cost more than his entire apartment. Finn walked carefully. I feel like I should remove my boots. You're fine, the Queen said. I'm not fine, Finn replied. I once spilled engine lubricant on a carpet. The landlord still sends me messages about it. The security commander moved ahead toward the main command corridor. Crew members inside the ship were already moving with practiced speed as alerts began appearing on wall displays. One officer spoke quickly. 3 hostile vessels now inside the outer defense grid. Another officer added, Station patrol craft are moving to intercept. Finn stopped again. Hostile vessels? The commander glanced back at him. They are not responding to communications. Finn raised a finger. In my experience, he said, ships that refuse to talk usually want to explode something. The Queen nodded slightly. That has often been the case. They entered the command deck, a wide circular chamber filled with holographic displays projecting the surrounding star system in brilliant blue light. 3 small red markers were approaching the station rapidly. Finn stared at the projection. Oh, look, he said. The exploding ships. One of the officers glanced at him. Those vessels use stealth drive technology banned in most systems. Finn leaned toward the display. Do they also use weapons banned in most systems? The officer hesitated. No, possibly. Finn folded his arms. Well, that's comforting. The Queen stepped closer to the central display. Her long ears shifted slightly as she studied the incoming ships. They have revealed themselves too quickly, she said. The security commander nodded. They expected the station to panic. Finn looked around the command deck. I'm panicking, he said helpfully. The commander ignored him. They are attempting to force a rapid strike before reinforcements arrive. Finn pointed at the holographic ships again. Just asking for context, he said. But are these people the same ones who ran that prison camp? The Queen's gaze remained on the projection. Yes. Finn rubbed his face slowly. So they came all the way here. He gestured toward himself. Because I shared a ration bar. The Queen looked at him calmly. You also protected someone they believed they had broken. Finn exhaled. Well, he said, next time I'll just share the soup. The command deck of the diplomatic vessel remained calm, but the calm had the quiet tension of a storm waiting politely for permission to begin. Blue holographic projections floated above the central table, showing the star system around Halcyon Station. The 3 red markers continued drifting closer across the map, their course lines narrowing toward the station like arrows. Finn leaned forward slightly. I don't want to alarm anyone, he said, but the red dots are getting larger. One of the officers glanced sideways at him. That is how proximity works. Finn nodded slowly. Right. Just checking. The Queen stood beside the holographic display with her hands folded calmly behind her back. Her expression had changed slightly. The warmth from earlier was still there, but beneath it now sat something colder and sharper, the posture of someone who had commanded fleets before. Station patrol ships? She asked. An officer responded immediately. Launching now, Your Majesty. 4 interceptors moving to delay the unidentified vessels. Finn raised a hand slightly. Delay is a polite way of saying, get shot at first, right? No one answered. Finn sighed. I respect honesty. On the display, 4 small blue icons detached from the station and accelerated outward toward the incoming ships. The patrol craft were tiny compared to the sleek shapes approaching from deep space, but they moved with impressive speed. The security commander studied the sensor feed. They are not slowing down. Another officer added, the hostile vessels are charging forward cannons. Finn pointed at the display. I would like to vote against forward cannons. The commander ignored him. They intend to strike the docking ring. Finn blinked. Dock 9? The officer checked again. Yes. Finn rubbed his temples. Of course it's Dock 9. I just organized that place. The Queen turned slightly toward him. You are concerned about the station. I am concerned about my lunch locker, Finn replied. I left a sandwich in there. The security commander stepped closer to the projection. If they destroy Dock 9, the station's primary cargo ring will lose pressure control. The officer nodded grimly. It would cripple trade operations for months. Finn stared at the map again. So not only are they trying to kill me, he said, they're also ruining the supply chain. The Queen tilted her head slightly. You sound offended. I am offended, Finn replied. Logistics is the backbone of civilization. One of the officers quietly smiled before returning to the sensor readings. The patrol ships reached the hostile vessels first. On the holographic display, the blue interceptors scattered into attack formation, their engines flaring bright as they attempted to surround the incoming ships. A burst of energy flashed across the projection. The first patrol craft fired. Several thin beams of plasma streaked toward the enemy vessels. Finn leaned closer. That seems optimistic. The hostile ships responded immediately. 3 bright pulses erupted from their hulls. 2 patrol craft vanished from the display. Finn flinched. Well, he said quietly, that escalated quickly. The remaining patrol ships split apart, maneuvering frantically to avoid the incoming fire. One managed to strike the side of an enemy vessel, sending sparks of energy across its hull. The security commander watched the battle without blinking. They are testing the station's response time. Finn raised a finger. I would prefer they test something else. The Queen spoke calmly. Prepare my escort ships. Several officers looked up. Yes, Your Majesty. Commands echoed across the bridge as new icons appeared on the holographic display. 3 larger ships detached from the diplomatic vessel support fleet and accelerated toward the approaching attackers. Finn pointed at them. Those look significantly bigger. They are, the commander replied. Finn nodded. I approve of bigger ships. The Queen remained focused on the battle unfolding in orbit. The hostile vessels were now very close to the station's outer defense grid. Open a communication channel, she said. One officer hesitated. With the attackers? Yes. The officer activated the transmitter. A wide beam of signal energy shot toward the hostile ships. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a distorted image flickered across one of the command screens. A tall, armored figure appeared, its face hidden behind a dark visor. The voice that came through the speakers was cold. Queen Vera. Finn leaned sideways toward the screen. Oh, good, he whispered. They know her. The figure continued. You were difficult to eliminate before. The Queen's expression remained completely calm. You are persistent. We are thorough. Finn raised his hand slightly toward the screen. Hello, he said. Before this conversation continues, I'd like to clarify something. The armored figure ignored him. You should not have returned to this system. The Queen's voice remained steady. You should not have built prison camps. Finn nodded enthusiastically. That's a good point. The armored figure finally looked toward Finn. And you? Finn straightened slightly. Yes? You should have remained forgotten. Finn thought about that for a moment. Then he shrugged. I was trying to. The hostile commander leaned slightly closer to the screen. The witnesses of that facility must be erased. Finn gestured toward the holographic map. You brought 3 warships to erase 1 dock worker? The armored figure replied coldly. You were never the only witness. Finn slowly looked at the Queen. Okay, he said. That sentence worries me. The armored figure on the screen leaned back slightly as the transmission crackled through the command deck. The holographic projection flickered across his dark visor, reflecting the blue light of the Queen's ship. You were never the only witness, the figure repeated. For a moment, no one spoke. Finn slowly pointed at the screen. That sounds like a threat, he said. The hostile commander ignored him again. Your escape from the facility caused considerable inconvenience, the figure continued. The Queen reclaimed her throne. Our operations were exposed. Entire networks collapsed. Finn raised a finger. I would like to apologize for the inconvenience. One of the officers beside him coughed quietly to hide a laugh. The Queen did not smile. Her gaze remained calm but sharp. You enslaved thousands of prisoners across several systems, she said. An efficient labor solution, the armored figure replied. Finn blinked. That might be the worst marketing slogan I've ever heard. The commander turned his helmet slightly toward Finn. You were an unexpected variable. Finn sighed. That's what my supervisors say too. The figure leaned forward again. You interfered with our prisoner control systems. You assisted her escape. You aided the rebellion that followed. Finn frowned. Hold on, he said. I mostly carried broken tools and complained about soup. You provided distraction. Finn crossed his arms. That soup was terrible. The transmission crackled briefly as one of the officers adjusted the signal filters. The Queen stepped closer to the screen. You failed, she said simply. The armored figure tilted his head. We learned. Behind him, the faint shapes of a bridge crew moved through red-lit corridors. And now you have come to repeat the mistake, she added. No, the commander replied calmly. We have come to finish it. Finn leaned toward the holographic display again. You know the station has defenses, right? The commander did not respond. Instead, he made a small gesture with his hand. Several new icons appeared on the tactical projection. Finn squinted. What are those? One of the officers quickly checked the sensors. Missile pods deploying from the hostile vessels. Finn stared. They brought extra exploding ships. The security commander spoke sharply. Activate countermeasures. Across the bridge, warning lights flared to life as the diplomatic vessel's defensive systems powered up. Energy shields shimmered faintly around the ship, barely visible through the command deck's panoramic windows. Outside, the dark vacuum of space suddenly erupted with motion. Dozens of small missile signatures launched from the enemy ships and accelerated toward Halcyon Station. Finn pointed at the display. That's a lot of enthusiasm. The officer controlling the defense grid responded quickly. Station interceptors launching. Small automated drones burst from hidden compartments around the docking ring, racing outward to meet the incoming missiles. Tiny flashes of light began appearing across the holographic map as the first intercepts occurred. The Queen watched silently. Finn watched less silently. I'm going to say something obvious, he said. No one stopped him. This seems like an unhealthy work environment. One of the tactical officers glanced at him briefly. War often is. Finn nodded. Fair. The security commander studied the map carefully. Enemy ships are splitting formation. The red markers shifted apart, spreading around the station. They're trying to divide our defenses. Finn rubbed his forehead. Strategically speaking, that seems rude. One of the escort ships belonging to the Queen accelerated forward on the display, engines burning bright as it intercepted the nearest hostile vessel. Energy beams flashed between them. The command deck vibrated faintly as distant weapons fire rippled through the surrounding space. Finn leaned back. So this is happening. The Queen finally spoke again, her voice calm and steady. They underestimated the station. Another explosion flashed across the projection. The security commander nodded slightly. And they underestimated you? Finn blinked. Please do not include me in this. At that moment, the hostile commander's voice returned through the transmission. You believe you have advantage. The Queen's eyes narrowed slightly. You believe you do not? The armored figure tilted his helmet. We brought more than ships. Finn looked up slowly. That sentence is also concerning. One of the censor officers suddenly stiffened. Your Majesty, the Queen turned. What is it? The officer's voice tightened. Multiple hyperspace signatures forming beyond the asteroid belt. The holographic projection expanded outward. New red markers began appearing across the outer edge of the system. Not 3, 10. Finn stared at the map. Then he looked at the Queen. Then he looked back at the screen. Well, he said slowly, I'm starting to miss the soup argument. For a few seconds after the new hyperspace signatures appeared, the command deck of the diplomatic vessel fell completely silent. 10 additional red markers glowed at the edge of the system. Finn leaned forward slowly, staring at the holographic map as if it might apologize. Well, he said finally, that seems excessive. One of the tactical officers spoke quietly. Enemy reinforcements confirmed. 10 vessels entering real space. Finn rubbed his face with both hands. I would like to return to a time when my biggest concern today was mislabeled vegetables. The Queen stood very still, studying the expanding formation of hostile ships. The red icons arranged themselves across the outer edge of the system with precise coordination, cutting off several escape vectors. They are attempting to surround the station, the security commander said. Finn glanced around the bridge. No pressure, he said, but I feel like they're really committed to this plan. The distorted image of the hostile commander flickered again on the screen. You cannot defend the station, the figure said calmly. Our network will finish what we began years ago. The Queen's voice remained steady. You hid behind prison walls then. And you hid among prisoners, the commander replied. Finn raised a hand slightly. Technically, I was also hiding. No one acknowledged this. The Queen stepped closer to the central projection. The glow of the hologram reflected faintly across her face in the curve of her long ears. Your mistake, she said quietly, was believing survival was weakness. The commander tilted his helmet. You survived by luck. Finn cleared his throat. Actually, it was mostly bad soup and stubbornness. One of the officers finally laughed openly before catching himself. Outside the command deck windows, flashes of distant weapons fire continued as the Queen's escort ships clashed with the first 3 attackers. But now the approaching reinforcements changed everything. The tactical officer spoke again. They will reach weapons range in 4 minutes. Finn pointed at the display. That's not a lot of minutes. The Queen turned slightly toward her crew. Open a system-wide transmission. The communications officer blinked. To the station? To everyone! Within seconds, the signal spread across Halcyon Station and every nearby vessel. Her voice carried through the entire system. This is Queen Vera. Even the hostile commander went silent. You believe fear will erase your crimes, she continued calmly. You believe witnesses can be removed and history will obey you. Finn folded his arms beside her. That would be convenient, he said. The Queen glanced briefly at him. But history remembers. Her gaze returned to the holographic map. And so do those you failed to break. The communications officer quietly added a new overlay to the display. Blue signals began appearing across the system. Finn squinted. What are those? The officer answered. Ships responding to the broadcast. More blue markers appeared. Cargo freighters, patrol vessels, private transports. Dozens of civilian ships throughout the trade lanes were powering their engines and moving toward the station. Finn blinked. Are those traders? The officer nodded. Halcyon Station supports half the outer colonies. They are not eager to lose it. Finn smiled faintly. Logistics saves the day. The hostile commander's voice returned, colder now. Civilian ships cannot defeat a war fleet. The Queen did not look away from the map. They do not need to. At that moment, the distant stars beyond the asteroid belt flashed again, but this time the new hyperspace signatures were blue. The tactical officer's voice rose with sudden energy. Multiple Allied fleets entering the system. Entire formations of warships emerged from hyperspace, sleek vessels bearing the markings of the Queen's empire and several neighboring governments. The red markers on the map suddenly looked much smaller. Finn leaned back slowly. Oh, he said, That's better. The hostile commander hesitated for the first time. You called reinforcements. The Queen shook her head slightly. No. More allied ships poured into the system. They came because they remember. The battle ended quickly after that. The hostile vessels attempted to retreat, but the surrounding fleets closed in, cutting off their escape routes. One by one, the red markers disappeared from the holographic display until only blue remained. Hours later, Halcyon Station drifted peacefully again beneath the quiet stars. Dock 9 was damaged but still intact. Workers were already repairing the cargo cranes while arguing loudly about whose fault it had been. Finn stood near the edge of the docking platform with his hands in his jacket pockets. Behind him, the Queen's diplomatic vessel prepared for departure. She approached quietly. "You are thinking," she said. Finn nodded. "I'm thinking my supervisor is going to ask why Dock 9 was attacked by a criminal empire. That seems reasonable. I'm also thinking," he continued, "that I might need a new job description." The Queen smiled. "You could come with us." Finn looked at her ship. Then he looked at the cargo cranes slowly lifting containers across the docking ring. He shook his head. "I think the galaxy is safer if I stay here." "You prefer the docks." "I prefer problems I understand." She studied him for a moment. "You protected me when I had nothing." Finn shrugged lightly. "You would have done the same." "Yes," she said quietly. A shuttle engine hummed softly as the final preparations for departure finished. Finn scratched his chin. "You know," he said, "this whole situation started because I shared half a ration bar. And because you believed a prisoner deserved kindness." Finn smiled faintly. "Well?" He gestured toward the busy docking ring. "Turns out kindness causes a lot of paperwork." The Queen laughed softly. Then she stepped back toward the waiting shuttle. As the diplomatic ship lifted slowly away from Halcyon Station, Finn looked up at the stars for a moment. Then he turned and walked back toward the cargo cranes. One of the dock workers waved from across the platform. "Finn, container C-47 still isn't labeled." Finn sighed. "Let me guess," he said. "Still not carrots."